Hi everyone and welcome. Today I'm going to show you all the books that I have acquired since the start of 2023. So basically 7 months of book hauling in the making. Now I have only acquired 20 books so far, which is a lot for some. It's not that much for me, especially if you know that my birthday was in June, and in previous years just my birthday book haul was more than 20 books. So 20 books for 7 months. That's pretty good, especially if you do know that I want to diminish my physical TBR, and if you keep buying a lot of books, actually buying more books than you can read in a year, that's quite difficult. But at this point in time, at the point of filming, I have already finished 25 books, I want to say, so my physical TBR is actually diminishing, and I hope that that will continue for the rest of the year, because I do think that I will only be buying or getting books around Christmas. So hooray for that. I have been trying to be a little bit more deliberate about the type of books that I'm buying, either favorites or continuations of series that I've really loved, or standalones, but just in general, books that I've either already read or books that I want to read very soon, so that they don't stay on my physical TBR for years to come. So I do think that I've done a pretty good job for that, because some of these I've already read and others I will try to read before the end of the year. But without further ado, let's get into the books, why I'm excited for them and why I decided to buy them. And first up, we have a sequel of a book that I read, I think in 2021, and that was on my top 10 of the year list, and that is The Faithless by C.L. Clarke. This is the sequel to The Unbroken, which was the first book in the Magic of the Lost trilogy. So this is the second book, the third one isn't out yet, and this was a new release at the beginning of this year. I actually snatched it up because I knew that I was going to want to read it, and at that point it had a discount, it was only €6, so I decided that that was the moment. Now in that first one, which is a colonial fantasy, we meet two women. One is the crown princess of that empire, and the other one is actually a soldier, but she is of one of these colonies, and she was actually abducted as a child to become a child soldier of the empire. Now she goes back to her home country because she needs to butt down a rebellion. I loved that first book. I loved that there was also a sapphic romance, and I have heard from people who already read the sequel that they liked it even more than the first one. So very high hopes for this one, and I hope to squeeze it in the next coming months. I at the very least want to read it before the end of 2023, because the sequel came pretty fast after the first book, and I do think that that means that the third and final book will maybe come out next year, and I want to be ready for that. Next up, I have a duology that I haven't started yet, but I read a trilogy of this author, absolutely loved it earlier this year, so I want to read this duology again before the end of the year, hopefully, or at least start it. And that is the Dreambot duology by N.K. Jemisin. So this is the first one, The Killing Moon, and then the second one is The Shadowed Sun. Now, I think that this is Egyptian inspired, or inspired by Egyptian myth, if I'm not mistaken. Now, I read the Broken Earth trilogy by this author, absolutely loved it. I also really liked how she wrote the story. The authorial voice was very strong in that one, so I hope that that will be the same for this one. Now, I have heard that most people like her Broken Earth trilogy and the Inheritance trilogy, if I'm not mistaken, but I have heard mixed reviews about this one. However, I just really wanted to give it a try, and I decided that going with a duology might be best, because I'm in the middle of a lot of bigger and longer series. Duology I might be able to finish in a reasonable amount of time. And Egyptian myth sounds pretty cool as well. Next up, another duology, and I actually already started this one. And that is, I think that this is the Serentine Mosaic duology by Guy Gavriquet. I already read the first one, which is Sailing to Serantium, and now I need to read the conclusion, which is Lord of Emperors. I actually already talked about this first one in my wrap-up of 2023 so far, and I really enjoyed it. And after reading this first one without physically owning them, I decided to just buy the duology. And I want to slowly acquire all of Guy Gavriquet's books, because I think that they are just ones that I will probably enjoy, and all of them are either standalones, duologies, and then maybe the occasional trilogy, but I think that it's good to have them very close by if I want to read something quick in between. Even though they do take me a while to read, all of them have a self-contained story that I really like. I do think that Sailing to Serantium, it ended quite abruptly, so I do want to start Lord of Emperors quite soon. But yes, another one by Guy Gavriquet that I quite enjoyed, the first one at least, and I cannot wait to get into the second one. So I think that I've been pretty good with buying and pretty smart with buying for these as well. So far, only wins for me. And that's the same for the next one, which is The Spear Cuts Through Water by Simon Jimenez. And I'm probably mispronouncing that, my apologies. This is actually one that I just finished at the point of filming this. Half an hour ago, I finished this book and I absolutely adored it. Now, I will be completely honest and say that I didn't really know a lot about this book, but people on my Discord were really raving about this and I was very curious. It was a standalone. I know that Evie also absolutely adores this one, and even though we don't have the same reading taste, I think that she's a little bit stricter than me, harsher than me. If she likes a book, chances are pretty high that I will like it as well, so I was very intrigued. This is a beautiful story. It's not a wrap-up, it's a haul. I hauled this one with beautiful cover as well, and I will have a standalone review for this one because I just finished it and I have a lot of thoughts. But all in all, this was a very unique fantasy story, one that I cannot really compare to anything else, but yes, another win for me, and happy that I finally got this one. Another reason that I got it was that I couldn't find it on audiobook. And I also thought that the ebook was quite expensive, and I was going back and forth between buying this floppy paperback or a hardcover, but I don't like reading from hardcovers. So I decided to be smart and just buy the floppy paperback. I read it in this floppy paperback. It's also a little bit damaged as well because I cracked the spines and stuff like that, but I really enjoyed the experience in itself. So yes, another one that I bought, and I actually bought this one for my birthday. I decided to splurge a little bit, not buy 30 books like I used to, but just very small stack of books. This was one of them, and I'm very happy that I decided to just go for it. Another one that I bought for my birthday to just treat myself a little bit was Speaking Bones by Ken Liu, of course the conclusion of the Dandelion Dynasty. I actually already listened to this one on audiobook, but I wanted to have the complete series for on my shelves. I don't know if you can see it, but they're here on the bottom, and now I have a complete collection. Very happy about that, although the spines are absolutely atrocious. They changed it so many times and it's the same publisher. It's Saga Press, it's the same cover art, but the spines are completely different. The first two, I think, they have the lettering in gold, and then they switched to white, and then they switched the author's name, which is here, and the title. So they're all different, and it doesn't really look that nice, but I'm not complaining. The story in itself, which is the most important part, of course, was great. Now, on my community tab, I asked which series you were most looking forward to me having basically a review, which will be spoiler free, but also a gush fest because I loved all of them. And Dandelion Dynasty was one of the options. So if that's the case, I will definitely have to go back into the previous installments to just refresh my memory. But I'm so excited to do that because I absolutely adored this entire series. So yes, very happy to have it completely on my shelves, even though they don't really match. Then I have a conclusion that I actually haven't read yet, and that is The Bone Shard War by Andrea Stewart. This is the third and final book of the Drowning Empire series. I absolutely adored The Bone Shard Daughter. I have a spoiler-free review for that one. I read The Bone Shard Emperor earlier this year, really enjoyed that one as well, but not as much as The Bone Shard Daughter, and this is the final one. So I want to read this one soon because that would make me conclude another series, which would be great for my ongoing series list, but I'm just going to wait a little bit, especially because I want to listen to them on audiobook. I listened to the second one on audiobook and I really like the narrator, so maybe I could do that one for this one as well. But if that's not the case and if the audiobook is not available through the library, I will of course read this one physically. And then another one that I decided to treat myself with because I already listened to the conclusion of the series on audiobook, but I absolutely adored it. It's one of my new all-time favorite series. Definitely need to re-update that list, but that is Jade Legacy by Fonda Lee. This is of course the third book in the Greenbone Saga series, which was an absolute surprise for me. I again talked about this entire series in my wrap-up, but yes, so happy that I finally have it and that I have the entire series on my shelves. With these book hauls, a lot of them I already read or I can read on my ebook or through audiobook, but sometimes some books you just want to physically own, or at least maybe that's just me, that's the collector in me, but I'm very happy when I have these finished series on my shelves. And to be honest, these ones, even though I think that the covers are absolutely dull and I don't really understand why you would like it. The first one is in green, the second one is in red, this one is in blue. The covers say absolutely nothing to me, but I do like how the spines are quite colorful next to each other. And this is also one that I decided to buy because it was 12 euros at a certain point and I decided to snatch it at that point. Now, I have said at the beginning of this video that all of my purchases were a very deliberate decision. Either these were sequels to beloved series of mine, or I knew what the book was about and I knew that I wanted to read it as soon as possible. I do have a couple of exceptions here, and that is because I went to the US. I think that a couple of you know that, some of you, most of you will probably not, because I had to go to Boston to present a small presentation for my job. However, my colleague and I decided that we wanted to prolong our visit and go to New York for a week, because Boston and New York, it's pretty close together, and it's probably going to be the last time that I ever visit the States, so we needed to make the most of it. And a couple of people on Discord suggested that I went to this bookstore, which is called The Strand, and my God, that was the best decision ever. It was such a big bookstore. It had all kinds of out-of-print hardcovers for pretty cheap. So unfortunately, I didn't have a big suitcase with me, so I had to be very deliberate in what I was going to buy, but it was more, this is a very nice hardcover and it's out of print, other than I know what this series is about or what this book is about and I want to read it as soon as possible. It was just a deal that I couldn't let pass. First of all, I have The Sundering Duology by Jacqueline Carey. The first book is called Banewrecker, if I'm not mistaken, and then the second one is Godslayer. Now, Jacqueline Carey, of course, is the author of the Phaedra trilogy / the Cassile Legacy series, which is 9 books, and I'm currently making my way through that, but that is going to be a new favorite of all time series. So, of course, I wanted to try other works by her somewhere down the line. This is not going to be a series that I'm going to read as soon as possible, but I want to try it at some point. And this was actually described as think of Lord of the Rings, but told from Sauron's point of view. Some people said Melchior. I don't know who Melchior is because I'm not that well versed in the lore of the Lord of the Rings, but basically make it an epic fantasy that is like Lord of the Rings, but from the bad guy's point of view. I thought that sounded very cool, and I really, really like these covers as well. So I counted it as a win that both of these were for $8, and they are currently out of print. So yes, of course, hopefully I will like it. And then I bought two books out of a trilogy, so the first 2, because the third one I couldn't find. I will probably never find in these editions, but I just really like the old school covers. And that is Sorcery Rising, which is book 1 of Fool's Gold trilogy by Jude Fisher. And then this one is, of course, the second book, which is Wild Magic. Now, if I'm not mistaken, Jude Fisher she as an author is not that well known, but she is the editor of, I want to say, some works of Robin Hobb and George R.R. Martin. Not entirely sure, but at the very least, in that world, she's a very famous name. Now, I have seen that these books do not have the highest rating on Goodreads. I think that in the second book, you have the POV of a rapist, which is, of course, not everybody's, cup of tea. Not everybody will find that an enjoyable read. However, I tend to like unreliable narrators, and if it is handled with care, I will probably like that sort of thing. So that's why I decided to go with these, and of course, also for the covers. And I wanted to try some older fantasy. These 2 books were again out of print, $8 each. Wanted to give them a try. But I actually just don't really know what they're about, so this could be an epic fail. With Jacqueline Carey, at least I know that I like the writing style and I know what the books are about. With Jude Fisher, I have absolutely no idea, but it was pressure, okay? I was under a lot of pressure to find books that fitted the suitcase, so I just decided to go with these. Now we're almost at the end here. I actually acquired some coupons for our local bookstore, and I decided to go a little bit outside of my comfort zone because I have so many fantasy books on my TBR and go with mostly historical fiction. So the first book that I have here is The Book of Eve by Meg Clothier. I hadn't heard about this one when I picked it up, but after that, I did see some booktubers also talk about it. Apparently, it's a more or less new release, and this is historical fiction from what I have gathered. Basically, you follow Beatrice, who is the convent's librarian, so it's all about books, and she's not really happy where she's at in the convent. However, at a certain point in time, 2 women arrive at the doorstep of that convent, and they have a book with them. They don't understand these women, they speak a strange language, and they die shortly after entering the convent. However, this book is given to Beatrice. So it's a book about books, and it's historical fiction, but I think that there's also a little bit of a mystery about it, maybe something dark, because these 2 women, who are they? So I think that this will be a nice book to read. I'm actually I started it, but I'm not far in, maybe 50 pages, and then I had to pause it to pick up some other books that I had to read. But yes, a little bit outside of my comfort zone, beautiful cover, and I do think that a book about books is always a good idea. Next up, I bought another historical fiction, and that is The Wind Knows My Name by Isabel Allende. This is another book that I think is very well known in the broader book community. However, I don't know it because it's not fantasy. But this takes place in the Second World War around the Kristallnacht, which is of course a very important part of history, and I've heard great things about this book, so I decided to pick it up, especially because it is shorter. It's 240 pages, and I want to get more and more into historical fiction because I know that I love that genre, but I didn't want it to be a humongous beast of a book because then I would probably be too intimidated. So happy that I picked this one up instead, and hopefully I can squeeze it into my TBR quite quickly. Next up, I actually have a fantasy novel. This one was gifted to me by my husband with his coupon because He thought that it was a standalone, I thought it was a standalone. It is not, and that is This Woven Kingdom by Tahereh Mafi. This is the first one in a trilogy, I think, and this YA. I already read this one, I disliked it severely. Happy that we bought it with a coupon and it didn't really cost us any money because this was a huge disappointment, unfortunately. And then the two last books that I bought with these coupons, and yes, I had to add a little bit of money of my own because, as always, when I enter a bookstore, it's very difficult to leave with only one or two books. So that happened. But this is The Dance Tree by Kieran Millwood Hargrave. And I know that this is an author who has also, I think, written The Mercies. I actually wanted to find that book, but I couldn't find it. So I decided to go with this one. The Dance Tree is, again, historical fiction. You follow multiple women, I think. And also around the time of a mysterious dance plague taking hold the city of Strasbourg. And I think that that's actually a real event that happened. So quite curious for this one. I have heard a lot about this author and a lot of praise, so I thought that as far as historical fiction goes, this is probably going to be a safe option for me. One that is not a safe option for me, and one that I, again, only bought because a lot of people on my Discord were talking about it, and I was a little bit curious, that is Labvona by Otessa Motzvech, if I pronounce that correctly. I don't know a lot about this. I didn't know anything about it, but I decided to look it up for the purpose of this video. And this is also historical fiction in which we follow an orphan who is in this fiefdom, a medieval fiefdom, and he is at the center of a power struggle that puts all manner of fate to a savage test. I have heard that this is gruesome, that a lot of people don't like reading this because it's dirty. I'm intrigued, what can I say? I think that somebody somewhere compared it a little bit to Tender is the Flesh, and I loved Tender is the Flesh. So I think that this could either be a surprise hit, or I could be disliking it severely. It could go either way, but at the very least, I am curious. And then the last book that I bought, this is actually one that I will be reading very soon. This was in my TBR for August as well, and that is The Weaver and the Witch Queen by Genevieve Gornichek, my most anticipated release of the year. This is from the same author as The Witch's Heart, which I absolutely adored. This is a Viking-inspired historical fantasy in which we follow two women. One of them wants to become the first queen of Norway. I will be reading this one in a spoiler-free reading vlog next week, so if you're looking forward to that, stay tuned. But yes, I cannot wait for Friday to arrive, because then I can finally start this book. And those are all the books that I've bought so far this year. Please let me know in the comments down below if you've heard of any of these, especially those that I bought in New York and I don't know a lot about, and if you like them or not, and what the book was that you hauled this year, or through the library, anything like that, that you were most looking forward to, and if you've read it, and if it was a disappointment or not. Let me know in the comments down below. As always, I hope that you enjoyed this video, and see you next time. Bye!